Tara Ross on the line with us. Tara is the author of Enlightened Democracy, the case for the Electoral College. Tara is a lawyer and writer focusing on legal and public policy issues. TaraRoss.com, the website. Tara, welcome to the program.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Thanks for joining us. The Electoral College was born in slavery. It was part of the grand compromise that included 2 votes in the Senate for each small state. But it went beyond that. It came out of the 3/5 compromise, where the individual states, the slave states, wanted to be able to have a number of members of the House of Representatives and thus a number of electoral votes for president in the mix, and yet they didn't want their slaves to be able to vote. Only the white people. So a state like Georgia, you had maybe 100-to-1 ratio of white people to slaves, but because of the 3/5 provision, 3/5 of those slaves were counted for purposes of representation in the House of Representatives. They also counted them for purposes of representation in the electoral vote. Why should we hang on to a vestige of the slavery era?
Well, I would disagree pretty much with your whole presentation. Sorry. I know that you probably know that, though. I did not see this as a compromise that came from slavery. Obviously, none. But
it's right there in the history. I mean, read the debates in the Constitutional Convention.
I think to the degree that we're going to say that slavery was involved, there was a discussion as they were discussing the composition of Congress, and really, if you want to talk about the Electoral College being born of slavery, you just have to say the whole Constitution really just needs to be thrown out because there was this issue going on in general at the convention.
Well, we've edited out of the Constitution, and this was done in large part with the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments. But we also specifically deleted parts of the Constitution that basically ratified slavery. Part of the Constitution that said that after 1808, that after the end of the Thomas Jefferson presidency, it would no longer be legal to trade in slaves. All this stuff got basically edited out of the Constitution. The word slaves wasn't used, but everybody knew what it was. It was a wink and a nod. Why not edit this out of the Constitution? I'd say this is the last really serious vestige of the compromises that had to be made by the large states to keep the small states in the Union because of slavery.
If I'm hearing you right, then any compromise that was ever made to make the small states feel like they weren't going to be trampled by the large states, whether, by the way, they were one of the northern small states that didn't really believe in slavery, or if it was everybody else.
Agreed.
We just need to get rid of all of that.
Yeah, so I don't disagree.
Left with a purely democratic system in which the small states will be trampled all the time.
I'm not suggesting
the Electoral College had nothing to do with the slavery debate.
If you want to get into that, I actually have a solution to that, which I think is small d democratic, and that is really simple, and that is to limit the size of a state. To say California is going to become 3 states: San Francisco and north, Los Angeles to San Francisco, and Mexican border up to Los Angeles. 3 states. Texas becomes 2 states. Florida becomes 2 states. New York City becomes its own state. If you did that, you would have far more proportional representation in the United States. Right now, our Senate does not represent the composition of the United States politically, racially, policy-wise. It just doesn't represent the United States. You've got senators from a group of states that represent less than 13% of the population who are able to block all legislation. That's insane.
I would paint this whole picture differently than you're painting it. This, to me, has very little to do with slavery, which obviously was an egregious institution that we are all extremely happy that it's gone. What this had to do with was with the founders' study of history and their knowledge that pure democracies implode. And the language against pure democracies.
Well, they never suggested that we have a pure democracy. Wrong. This was always a constitutionally limited, representative democratic republic. There was no debate or doubt about that. The question was whether you could hold these 13 states together. And the problem that you had with large states like South Carolina and Georgia in particular was that they had so few white males who could vote in those states, and yet they demanded to have a say in who was president and a say in what legislation passed the Senate. And as a consequence, we have each state has 2 senators, regardless of their population, and each state has an electoral vote equal to the number of members of the House of Representatives and the Senate that they have plus 2. They're presumably their governor and their attorney or the lieutenant governor rather. And all of this was because there was these large populations in these southern states who couldn't vote. But, the states wanted them to be counted for purposes of the presidency and the Senate.
This had a lot more to do with the fact that they were looking for a representative government. It has to do with the fact that they were there, and really delegates from different states didn't trust each other at all. Their first allegiance was to their states.
Sure,
and
I agree.
The small states, I think, especially felt very, very defensive against the other states. There's the guy, I forgot his name now, from Delaware, and he says to the whole convention, "I do not, gentlemen, trust you. If you have the power, you will use it to our destruction." And that was the kind of attitude that prevailed among the small state delegates. And the Electoral College came about because of that kind of attitude and the feeling, the belief of delegates that they could not trust people in other states and that they needed protections, for their own sovereignty, for their own subcultures, for their own way of life within their own states. We have centralized so much in this country and moved it up to D.C. and moved it to the federal level. That is not the way things were when this country was first founded. I would say to our detriment.
Oliver, I think it was Oliver Ellsworth was the.
I think it was. I'm thinking Bedford. I can't remember now if that's a first name or last name.
Yeah, okay. You're probably right.
Yeah.
In any case, he was the representative from Delaware to the Constitutional Convention. But the point is, regardless of the history of why we have the Electoral College, why it is that every state gets the number of members of Congress that they have plus 2 as members of the Electoral College, why keep it?
Because it works great. It is a fantastic institution that forces our presidential candidates to spread out their base of appeal, to appeal to people in multiple different.
Why are they only campaigning in 9 states right now? Then
I'll give up because we're in the final weeks of a campaign. This campaign is about more than just the campaign commercials that we're seeing, this week and last week.
When was the last time a presidential campaign and candidate went to California or New York State?
2000, George Bush went to California and made an effort because he thought he was going to be able to win.
You don't seriously believe that, Tara?
And they pulled out. But there was a period of time, Karl Rove talks about it in his book, where they went to California because they thought
it was for a fundraiser.
No, he went to campaign. They thought they would win.
Well, you call it a campaign because you're talking about 2004, right?
No, 2000.
Oh, in 2000. Okay. Well, you call it a campaign stop. In any case, make it all nice and slick. But he was there for a fundraiser.
No, I wasn't there. I'm telling you what Karl Rove wrote. But if you
I'm sorry, Karl Rove has no credibility in my book. But
he was the.
If we had a national popular vote, wouldn't I realize there would be a problem that you could identify the 10 largest cities in America and simply campaign in them, which basically means we'd have Democratic presidents forever. And I understand why conservatives like yourself would be horrified by that. But isn't there something in between?
To go back to the swing state point, I just say a couple of things. One is this campaign is about more than campaign commercials. It is about 4 years of governance and what people think of that. And the reason California is safe is because they're pretty happy by and large with Obama and his health care plan and all of the stuff that comes with that.
But there's a lot of Republicans in California who feel totally screwed, totally disenfranchised. They don't have, their vote doesn't count for the presidency.
Their vote counts in a Democratic election in California to determine who is going to represent California. And yes, I'm sure it is frustrating to be a Republican in California right now. But look, it's probably also frustrating to vote in a gubernatorial race in California or a senatorial race or any number of statewide races that they're having trouble with. Republicans.
Well, they just had a Republican governor, Arnold Schwarzenegger. Okay. Anyway, Tara, I meant to leave you with the last word. My apologies. TaraRoss.com.